Exodus chapter 37, verse 1 through chapter 38, verse 20. And Bezalel made the ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits long high. And he overlaid it with clean gold inside and outside, and made a molding of gold all around it. And he cast 4 rings of gold for its 4 feet, 2 rings on its one side, and 2 rings on its other side. And he made poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he put the poles into the rings at the sides of the ark to lift the ark. And he made a lid of atonement of clean gold, 2.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide. And he made 2 cherubim of beaten gold. He made them from the 2 ends of the lid of atonement, 1 cherub at one end on this side, and the other cherub at the other end on the other side. He made the cherubim from the lid of atonement from the 2 ends. And the cherubim spread out their wings above, and covered the lid of atonement with their wings, with their faces toward each other. The faces of the cherubim were turned toward the lid of atonement. And he made the table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, and 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. And he overlaid it with clean gold, and made a molding of gold all around it. And he made a rim of a handbreadth all around it, and made a molding of gold for the rim all around it. And he cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put the rings on the 4 corners that were at its 4 legs. The rings were next to the rim as holders for the poles to lift the table. And he made the poles of acacia wood to lift the table, and overlaid them with gold. And he made the utensils which were on the table, its dishes, and its cups, and its bowls, and its jars for pouring, of clean gold. And he made the lampstand of clean gold. He made the lampstand of beaten work, its base and its shaft, its cups, its ornamental knobs, and its blossoms were from it. And 6 branches came out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand out of one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand out of the other side. There were 3 cups like almond flowers on one branch, with ornamental knob and blossom, and 3 cups like almond flowers on the other branch, a knob and a blossom, so for the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand. And on the lampstand were 4 cups like almond flowers, its knobs and blossoms, and a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, for the 6 branches coming out of it. Their knobs and their branches were of it, all of it were one beaten work of clean gold. And he made it 7 lamps, and its snuffers, and its trays of clean gold. He made it of a talent of clean gold, and all its utensils. And he made the incense slaughter place of acacia wood, 1 cubit long, and 1 cubit wide, square, and 2 cubits high. Its horns were of it, and he overlaid it with clean gold, its top and its sides all around, and its horns. And he made a molding for it of gold all around it. And he made 2 rings of gold for it under its molding, at its 2 corners on both sides, as holders for the poles with which to lift it. And he made the poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he made the set-apart anointing oil, and the clean incense of sweet spices, according to the work of the perfumer. And he made the slaughter place of ascending offering of acacia wood, 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits wide, square, and 3 cubits high. And he made its horns on its 4 corners, the horns were of it, and he overlaid it with bronze. And he made all the utensils for the slaughter place, the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, and the forks, and the fire holders. He made all of its utensils of bronze. And he made a grating for the slaughter place, a bronze network under its rim, midway from the bottom. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 corners of the bronze grating, as holders for the poles. And he made the poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with bronze. And he put the poles into the rings on the sides of the slaughter place with which to lift it. He made the slaughter place hollow with boards, and he made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the bronze mirrors of the serving women who did service at the door of the tent of appointment. And he made the courtyard for the south side of the screens of the courtyard were of fine woven linen, 100 cubits long, their 20 columns and their 20 sockets of bronze. Their hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver, and for the north side the screens were 100 cubits long, their 20 columns and their 20 sockets of bronze. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver, and for the west side there were screens of 50 cubits, their 10 columns and their 10 sockets. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver, and for the east side, eastward, 50 cubits, 15 cubits of screens on the one side with their 3 columns and their 3 sockets, and 15 cubits of screens the other side of the courtyard gate, on this side and that side, with their 3 columns and their 3 sockets. All the screens of the courtyard all around were of fine woven linen, and the sockets were and the sockets for the columns were of bronze. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver, and the overlay of their tops was of silver. And all the columns of the courtyard had bands of silver, and the covering for the gate of the courtyard was the work of an embroiderer, of blue and purple and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen, and 20 cubits long, and the height along its width was 5 cubits, corresponding to the screens of the courtyard. And the columns were 4, and their sockets of bronze 4. Their hooks were of silver, and the overlay of their tops and their bands was of silver. And all the pegs of the dwelling place and of the courtyard all around were of bronze.